Hello again, fight fans. I'm Michael Montero for Boxing Monthly. You're watching the Neutral Corner for the week of November 26th. Man, can you believe it's almost December already? It's already Thanksgiving, man. This is just crazy. This year is just flying by. I feel like every year of my life, just the years fly by quicker. But, bad decisions seem to make time fly by quicker. So maybe that's what it is. Hint, hint, what we'll be talking about in a second. But, it's Thanksgiving already, Turkey Day. And for me, I'll do what I always do on Thanksgiving. I'll eat a ton of food and watch my Detroit Lions blow it. That's pretty much what I did growing up. That was our family tradition. Eat a lot of food, watch the Lions blow it on Thanksgiving. But other than that, some quick news and notes, and then we'll get into the review of last week's action. Not going to spend a lot of time on news and notes here. I just wanted to touch on something real briefly. Lucas Browne, the heavyweight from Australia, popped again on another VADA test. Part of the WBC's, clean testing program. Even though this was a WBA fight, I think that the fighters were ranked in the WBC, so they were doing VADA testing. And Lucas Browne popped for a drug called Ostarine. I'm not exactly sure how to say this, but Ostarine is the name of the drug. You guys remember earlier this year, after fighting Ruslan Chagaev and winning that fight by stoppage, he popped for clenbuterol. Now he's a repeat offender. And after that clenbuterol test, he actually sued the WBA over the test because he claimed that he didn't take any performance-enhancing drugs. He claimed that he got contaminated while he was over in Russia. And there have been instances where there's been tainted meat and stuff like that in Mexico and Russia before. So he sued the WBA and they settled with him basically by giving him the Shannon Briggs fight. They were supposed to fight. Browne and Briggs were supposed to fight for the WBA regular title next month. And then the winner was eventually going to fight the winner of the proposed fight between Anthony Joshua and Vladimir Klitschko for the super title. Now that Tyson Fury is vacated. Or actually, wait, that's right. They had to fight Fresno Kendo before they could do that. WBA, complete freaking mess, right? But anyway, now he pops again. And Browne again is denying the charge. He's saying that he was taking supplements, some kind of prescribed medication, and they think that that's where this drug came from, this little drug that, traces of the drug that popped on this test. Look, man, repeat offender. At this point, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus or accuse anybody or anything, but you've popped twice on a test in a year. You got to take him off the rankings. You got to take him off the ratings until the guy comes back and is clean. It wouldn't surprise me if he gets suspended for a year over this. When you're popping twice in the same year, in 2 straight training camps, or 2 straight fights, not a good look, right? So the WBA or look for them to take him off the rankings at this point and suspend him for a year. But that's what's up with that one. And look, we've had several of these guys, man. Berman Staverne's another one where they've just been popping on tests. Say what you will about VADA. Some of their tests, or some of the people they've popped, like the Alexander Povetkin situation earlier this year, people fought over the nuances, that it was just a trace element of a drug that wasn't banned and then became banned, and there was this whole timeline thing. Don't blame VADA for this stuff. Blame the sanctioning organizations and the rules that they have for the process that they follow and everything. VADA is just doing what they're paid to do, and that's give drug tests. And if somebody pops, they report it. That's what they're supposed to do. That's what USADA and the rest of them should be doing. If you look at the guys popping on tests, it's with the VADA test. It's because they're the best in the business. So any fighter that's taking VADA testing and passing, you should see them as a clean fighter. Any fighter that's not taking VADA testing, especially those refusing to do VADA testing, you should be suspicious of them. And just so you know, Kovalev-Ward, that was VADA tested, that fight. But let's get into the review of last week's action. Let's start with Friday night. Over in Wembley Arena, over in the UK, George Groves gets back in the win column with a win over a German Kazakh fighter, Eduard Guxnecht. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Sounded good to me, right? So good for Groves to get back in the win column now. He's got some wins going for him. So, look, he's still a popular fighter over there in the UK, and maybe he can wiggle his way into another meaningful fight in 2017. Here in the States at Fantasy Springs Casino in Indio, California, maybe a couple hours outside of LA, Pablo Cesar Cano scores a split decision over Mauricio Herrera by the scores of 97-91 twice, and a third score going 95-93 for Herrera. Cano was deducted 2 points, one in the fourth and one in the eighth for repeated low blows. Without the low blows, he would have dominated on two of the scorecards. I thought he clearly won this fight. I'm not sure what that third judge was seeing. Maybe there was just something in the air this week with shitty cards. But look, Mauricio Herrera looked old in this fight. Just looked old, and he's been in a lot of wars, and it's a shame because he really did get the short end of the stick on a lot of the decisions. He should have, on paper, accomplished more. He should have had titles in his career, but I just think he's going to be one of those hard luck kind of fighters that retires, having not got that signature win that he deserved. But for Cano, he moves on to bigger and better things. For Herrera, he probably needs to consider retirement, or maybe a farewell fight next year and then going into retirement. On Saturday in Germany, Marco Huck scored a unanimous decision over Ukrainian fighter Dmytro Kucher. So, that's just some of the action. But of course, the big fight card was this Kovalev-Ward thing in Las Vegas. And I'll talk real quickly about the undercard, and then I'll get into the main event. Clarissa Shields, the two-time American Olympic gold medalist for the female boxing team here in the United States, she scored a unanimous decision in her pro debut. It was a pretty entertaining fight. It was 4 two-minute rounds, and she got the nod there in a decision win. Also, let's see, Curtis Stevens, he won his fight as well. And surprisingly, I said that Curtis Stevens would dominate in his fight against De La Rosa, and he clearly won. But I was surprised it went the whole I think it's 10 rounds. I thought he'd score a stoppage, but the undercard itself was just underwhelming. I mean, even the fight I was really interested in the undercard, Alexander Gvozdyk, he scored the 8th round retirement stoppage over Isaac Chilemba. I thought the Ukrainian prospect looked good. I thought he lost maybe some of the early rounds, but he really was learning on the job and coming back. And he had Chilemba hurt, I think, in the 4th round, and had him up against the ropes and had the referee taking a good look at him. But I thought Chilemba, was okay. I thought he recovered fine, but he was systematically getting broken down. And I thought the prospect, who's now 12-0, 10 knockouts, looked like he was learning in there and just kind of growing in front of our eyes. Now, Chilemba claims that he hurt his hand in the 3rd round. I think it was his right hand, and he retired in the corner after the 8th. Roy Jones Jr., who actually trained him for this fight, he threw in the towel and called the fight off. And they're saying that he broke his right hand, I believe, and that affected their performance. Maybe so. But, injuries happen in boxing, and sometimes people break their hands because they land on the wrong spot. They hit a guy in the hip, they hit a guy in the top of the head. I wasn't sure where the broken hand or injured hand happened, but sometimes when fighter X injures themselves, it's because fighter Y did something, positioned themselves in a way or something to make fighter X reach or land in the wrong spot to injure themselves. So, look, I thought that Alexander Gvozdyk did a very, very good job in this fight. He's going to go on to bigger and better things. He's a guy to look at, or keep your eye on, I should say. But we're going to talk about bad decisions in a second here, but the robbery on this card was between Maurice Hooker and Darlis Perez. Somehow this fight was declared a draw. I didn't even think it was close. I thought that Perez dominated. I thought that Hooker looked bad. I thought that the prospect looked suspect, and he pretty much was exposed in this fight. And that's not a word I like to use, but he was exposed in this fight. Not a contender, but a pretender. I don't even think there's anything really to build on here. This looks like a guy who did good at the regional level in the amateurs, where he grew up in Dallas, Texas, and accomplished some things, and he can be a fine fringe contender, but that's pretty much all we have here. The scores for that fight were 97-93 in favor of Perez, 97-93 in favor of Hooker, and a third score of 95-95. Robert Hoyle was the judge who scored this fight correctly. Glenn Feldman had it 95-95, which is a really shitty card, but Adelaine Byrd somehow had it 97-93 for Maurice Hooker, who, by the way, was the Rock Nation fighter on this Rock Nation card, and this was the Rock Nation fight on the undercard. So I'm going to talk a little bit later about establishment, house fighter, that kind of stuff. That plays a role here, especially with Vegas judges. And I'll talk about that more in a second. But Adelaine Byrd, she's had too many of these in recent times. Glenn Feldman has too, but especially Adelaine Byrd. Really horrible score. And just an injustice for Darlis Perez, who, has had a rough run of it. He I think got knocked out last year, and he's come back from it well, and he deserved this nod. He really, really deserved this fight, man. But let's talk about the main event. Okay. So by now, you guys, most of you, if you're a diehard enough of a boxing fan to watch my show and watch some of the other shows or listen to podcasts like The Next Round, which I called into yesterday with Steve Kim and Gabe Montoya, and some of the other places that I call in and contribute, you guys have probably already seen the fight 2 or 3 times already. There's no need for me to go over all the details of the fight. I just want to talk about the decision, okay? I scored the fight live there ringside, 116-111, or 8 rounds to 4 for Kovalev. I've since watched it again, and I watched a version of it without any commentary. I watched a version of it that a fan shot with their cell phone, I think, and posted it online from the crowd. And I watched that one, and I scored it 115-112 for Kovalev. So 7 rounds to 5, of course, the knockdown being the difference. So I don't see how you can give Andre Ward 7 rounds in this fight, even for the most biased ring observer. But in the moment, right after the fight, I said that this was a robbery. And I tweeted it out, robbery of the year. And my tweet, I sent a few tweets like that. I tweeted about the pro-Ward crowd booing the decision and stuff like that. And several of my tweets got hundreds of retweets and likes. So there was a reaction that my tweets were getting. So there were other people out there who obviously agreed with me, okay? I wasn't talking shit. There were colleagues of mine ringside and that didn't go to Vegas but wrote about the fight and were watching it live from their home, that scored the fight even wider for Kovalev than I did and felt the same way, that robbery was the word being used. Now, I want to clear something up, okay? Because I've since gone back and said, this wasn't a robbery in the true sense of that word as it relates to boxing. When we think robbery, we think one fighter dominating another fighter and getting screwed over on the cards. That happened in the co-main, right? That happened in that Hooker-Perez fight I just talked about. That was a robbery in the classic sense of the word. But why this felt like a robbery, like there was just a feeling in the arena from most people. And it wasn't just in T-Mobile Arena. After the fight, I actually walked. I didn't take the shuttle back. I wanted to walk outside and talk to people. And we walked from T-Mobile over to the MGM Grand and talked to people on the way as we were walking down the street and in the MGM, in the casino. And there was a vibe in the air, a feeling that an injustice had been done. And you guys know on multiple platforms, I said that I favored Andre Ward to win by a close split, controversial decision because I felt the establishment, the American boxing establishment, wanted him to win. And that fighters with his style get the benefit of the doubt from Vegas judges. And a lot of you were asking me, a lot of you haters especially, what the hell is the American boxing establishment? What the hell is that? You're making shit up out of thin air. The Nevada State Athletic Commission is the American boxing establishment. The BWAA, Boxing Writers Association of America, that is the American boxing establishment. The NSAC, Nevada State Athletic Commission, is the most powerful, influential commission not just in American boxing, but across the world. They are the most powerful commission in the entire planet for boxing. And yes, I'm including the UK, I'm including Mexico, I'm including all of it. It's the Nevada State Athletic Commission that kind of runs the sport in a way. And they're very insular, they're very insulated. They really, really look out for their own. Think about a teachers union, okay? Think about a fraternal order of police or something like that. They very, very much look after their own. They're like the Teamsters union almost. It's very hard to get in there and move up. And once you get there, it's very hard to lose your spot. They all kind of take care of each other and look after each other. And in recent years, we've seen fighters work their way up in that commission and kind of be protected there. Now, that's not what Andre Ward is. This was his first fight in Las Vegas. But he was clearly the establishment fighter here, okay? You had an American fighter, the last American gold medalist, last male American gold medalist in boxing, undefeated record, sparkling resume, right? Super 6 tournament winner from 5-6 years ago, American born and bred, good looking, well spoken, a man of God. He's the son of God. That's literally his nickname he puts on his shorts, right? A man of Jesus. And this is a Jesus loving country. Going up against the evil Russian. Even though he lives in America now, he's an American citizen, and he has a child that was born here. We'll just glance over that. Going up against the evil Russian. And the rhetoric going around during the promotion, during fight week, particularly coming from the Rock Nation side of things, and Jay Price and all those guys over on that Ward side, was, we're going to do this for America. This is America versus Russia. This is us versus them. They were trying to make this some Rocky IV shit. They were bringing up Ivan Drago comparisons. They were talking about, people were bringing up Donald Trump and Putin and WikiLeaks. There were people saying things like, Russia got their president, but they're not going back with their titles, damn it. Stuff like that. It was concerning, man. It was just concerning because that emotion bled over to the arena. And not just to the fans in the house, but to press row. And there was a lot of fuckery going on press row. And I'll admit, I let myself get caught up in some of it. I could have behaved a little bit better myself on press row because of some of the things I heard behind me. One of the biggest fucktards in the entire YTBC or LTBC, whatever the fuck it is, was sitting behind me to my left in a seat that wasn't even his, but the guy who was supposed to be there didn't show up or went to the media center, I don't know, so he just moved up there and sat down. And just the crap this guy was saying the whole time. You would have thought Farrakhan was sitting behind me. And he's one of my biggest haters that's obsessed with me and makes videos about me and my colleagues all the time, purposely taking us out of context. He's a fucking, just a despicable person. And he only gets credentialed to fights because of a few people he knows that are influential in the business that hook him up because of some of the work he does with them on the side. But that whole emotion, right? When you see that house guy get the nod and then the reaction from it, you just felt like an injustice had been done. And for those of you who had Ward winning, maybe you had Ward winning 7 rounds and you scored that, you agreed with the 114-113 score, fine. But look at the judges' scorecards, okay? 2 of the judges had Ward winning rounds 7 through 12. 6 straight rounds. And the other judge, Burt Clemens, he had Ward winning 5 through 11. 7 straight rounds. Now, virtually everyone who's saying they feel Andre Ward won this fight, and by the way, if you feel Andre Ward won this fight, you're in the minority. 3/4 of the media, worldwide media, thought that Kovalev won. And the overwhelming majority of fans thought that Kovalev won. Even the majority of the HBO commentator crew thought Kovalev won. So if you thought Ward won, you're in the minority, which is okay. But just understand that. But a lot of the Andre Ward won people were saying this was a close fight. that could have went either way, right? That's what I've heard. Stop calling this a robbery. Stop calling this an injustice. This was a close fight that could have went either way. Fine. Riddle me this. In a close fight that could have went either way, how does one fighter win 7 straight rounds on a scorecard? In 6 straight rounds on 2 other scorecards? Does that sound like a close fight that could have went either way? How does a close fight that could have went either way, let's break it down to a round, the 10th round, which I felt was clearly a Sergey Kovalev round. How did all 3 judges have that round for Andre Ward? Does that sound like a close fight that could have went either way? You know what I find interesting? Burt Clemens scored the 12th round for Kovalev. He was the only of the 3 judges who scored that round for Kovalev. To me, it looked like what Steve Kim and others call bookkeeping, which is basically somebody looking at their scorecard and saying, whoa, 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 I've given way too many rounds in a row to this one guy. I got to give another one to this guy to make sure that your card is evened up and looks close. Because even you're looking at your card saying, whoa, 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 this is way too wide. Shit, I got to give this guy a gimme round. By the way, I thought Kovalev probably won the 12th round because he hurt Ward with a body shot and had him holding on in that round. But when you see things like that, it just makes, it's not a good look. What I think happened here, and let me say this, okay? I'm not implying that there was corruption. I'm not implying that Jay Price sweetened the pot, for the judges and said, hey, hook this guy up. We want it to be 114, 113. I'm not saying that happened. This isn't some conspiracy theory shit. What I'm saying is that things like confirmation bias, things like favoritism, things like double standards, and things like grading on a curve, and the crowd, a pro whatever fighter crowd, who oohing and eyeing anytime he does something, that can affect a judge's score. Judges are human. They're not supposed to be. They're supposed to be robots, but they're human. And I think what we saw was grading on a curve. I think people were so surprised at how dominant Sergey Kovalev was early on as he was outboxing the so-called master boxer, the best boxer we've seen since a young Floyd Mayweather, so easily outboxing him early on that when Ward started to just do better and merely was losing rounds by a slimmer margin than he was losing them early on, there was a little bit of a grading on a curve happening in some of those middle rounds. Now, I thought Ward clearly won a couple rounds. There was a couple rounds where he did some nice body work. The shots didn't hurt Kovalev. They didn't do a whole lot. They never stopped him in his tracks or backed him up, but they took a little steam out of him. The problem was a lot of those body shots he landed were not scoring blows because they were borderline low. They were on the hip. They were on the back. Or they were while he was holding Kovalev. He was holding and hitting. Or he was spinning him out of a clinch and punching him on the way out after he had been told to break. Robert Byrd, the referee, repeatedly warned Sergey Kovalev in the early rounds, not Ward. After Kovalev dropped Ward and hurt him, Ward was hanging on. He even came out in the 3rd round and just ran across the ring and dove at him. He looked like one of the Oakland Raiders. He looked like a free safety in the NFL, just grabbing dude, grabbed down by his legs. And Robert Byrd warned Kovalev. There wasn't one stern, clear warning given solely to Andre Ward until the 11th round. If you think I'm making it up, go back and look. Every soft warning up until that point was given strictly directly to Kovalev, or it was kind of a shared warning, like, okay, guys, come on, let's fight, let's box, that kind of a thing. So warning one fighter early on, warning Kovalev, again, and I think this was grading on a curve from Robert Byrd, the referee, because Kovalev was being so dominant. He kind of got in his ass a little bit to even things up. That helped Ward's grappling and mauling tactics in the middle rounds, which facilitated some of the body work he did in the later rounds. Does that make sense? That's how a referee can influence a fight. Now, I said before in my breakdown video that I made like a month ago that Kovalev and his team have to prepare for that. And to their credit, I think he did a pretty good job in the clinch. He didn't let Andre maul and grapple too much, and he gave it right back to him. And he even made some adjustments late. And I thought that, especially in that 12th round, Kovalev found something where he was going to the body that he can use in the rematch against Andre Ward. I thought there was one last readjustment made, and it wasn't on the Ward side, it was on the Kovalev side with the body shot. So look for that if a rematch does happen. But that is how a referee can grade on a curve, and that's how it can affect the later rounds of a fight. That's how judges can grade on a curve. Oh man, this guy, what a warrior. He's come back from that knockdown. He's actually making this fight competitive. Well, that was his best round of the fight. Yeah, I'll go ahead and give it to him. Just because a guy has had his best round of the fight doesn't necessarily mean it was a good enough performance in that round to win the round. You don't judge a fight progressively round by round, thinking about what happened in rounds before it. You judge each individual round like its own mini fight. You forget about what happened before and you act like it's the first round of a new fight. That's how you're supposed to score. And I challenge any of you out there to go back and watch this damn fight and judge that way. Forget about the first round once the second round starts. And you tell me what 7 rounds Andre Ward won on your scorecard. One thing I've said repeatedly on my channel, you guys who follow me, the whole time, you know this. I say that professional boxing is hurting and not getting hurt. It's the hurt business. This is not amateur fighting. This is the professional prize ring. And there were 3 really hard, impactful punches in this fight. There were a bunch of crisp, clean shots landed by both guys. But there were 3 punches that visibly shook the other guy. And all 3 were landed by Sergey Kovalev. In the first round, a jab that knocked Ward back, almost knocked him down. In the second round, the knockdown we all saw off a right hand, which I'm hearing now is a flash knockdown. You're an idiot if you're calling it a flash knockdown. And then in the 12th round, a body shot that visibly bothered Ward, and he held on and didn't do anything for the rest of that round after the body shot landed. Now, it's only 3 shots, but those were the 3 hard, impactful punches that changed the dynamic of a round that were landed in the fight. Ward didn't land anything like that. He landed some nice body shots in maybe the 7th, 8th, 9th round, kind of in there. He landed some nice counter jabs here and there throughout the fight, but nothing that stopped Sergey in his tracks, nothing that pushed him back, nothing like that. Nothing that moved him, nothing that forced him to hold on. Some of the body work slowed him down, but again, a lot of that body work wasn't traditional scoring blows that the judges should have counted. It was borderline illegal, quote unquote, veteran tactics type of punches. Effective, but not scoring blows. Now, yes, I'm in a bad mood. I've been in a bad mood since this damn decision. A lot of you out there are having fun with this and making this about tribalism and nationalism and race, all of that. That's pathetic. And I would hope that we would be beyond that kind of stuff. I've made too many videos addressing that. I'm just not even going to go into it. I'm just going to say some of the videos I've seen on YouTube this week, and I tweeted one out today, it's just beyond sad. It's actually scary. It's actually scary that these people are purposely going to a fighter, pretending like they're unbiased, interviewing the fighter, and then going behind their back and saying racist things and making videos about it, purposely trolling people that are feeding them, that are giving them a press credential, giving them access to the fighters, giving them, seats that would cost thousands of dollars. And these people are unethically doing things behind all the people's backs. It's really, really disgusting. It's fine to disagree. And you guys know there's some of you out there that we disagree on a lot of stuff and we go back and forth and jar at each other, but we don't get nasty like that. It's really, really pathetic that some of these guys are just having a ball right now with this. And you guys know some of the channels. I'm not going to even name them. Just stop interacting with these guys. Stop giving them clicks. Stop subscribing to their shit. Just ignore them. We should just ignore them and hope that they go away. One last thing before I move on to the preview for this week. Yes, there is a rematch clause between Kovalev and Ward. And yes, Kathy Duva made it very, very clear that her side is going to send a letter to Rock Nation next week to get the ball rolling on it. They're not waiting until the end of the year or the beginning of next year. They're sending it next week. They want to get the ball rolling now. As far as I understand it, the rematch clause is just like the original contract, where there's a neutrality clause in there where the fight can't be in Russia or California, which means it's going back to Las Vegas, okay? That's just how it is. So hopefully, if the fight happens, the judges and the ref will be better next time. Obviously, there's going to be a huge tug of war between both sides trying to find the right mix of officials to govern that fight. But Andre Ward and his side didn't really want to talk about the rematch in a post-fight press conference. And I found it interesting that Sergey sat down in his sweats at the post-fight presser and looked like he had just been out for a jog. It looked like he had just went to the gym and lifted some weights. He looked tired, but he didn't look beat up at all. At all. Andre Ward looked beat up. He looked so beat up that he wore big-ass sunglasses at the post-fight presser, and he was moving slow. He sat down slow. He was smiling and he was happy, but he looked beat up. He looked like he had just been beat up a little bit. But his side didn't want to talk about a rematch. And knowing Andre Ward's history, he has no problem walking out of a contract. He has no problem sitting on his ass for 3 years to walk out of a contract. So it is up to Peter Nelson, who was there that night, ringside, to push for this rematch. No tune-ups, no delays, no bullshit. Immediate rematch. Let's move on. So this week over in the UK, in the Motorpoint Arena in Cardiff, Wales, Billy Joe Saunders is fighting Russian fighter Arthur Akarov for defending his WBO middleweight title. Really, does anybody give a shit about anything Billy Joe Saunders has to say or do? I could give a flying fuck. Let's not even talk about it. Also on that card, Terry Flanagan is defending his WBO lightweight title. This will be the 4th defense of that title he won, going up against Puerto Rico's Orlando Cruz. I think this will be a pretty interesting fight, but Cruz just doesn't have the firepower to contend with Flanagan. I like Terry to win by late stoppage, maybe a decision, but possibly late stoppage in that fight. Over here in the United States at the Cosmo in Las Vegas, one of the best matchups of the year. Look, if Kovalev-Ward was the best pound-for-pound matchup between two of the best in their division, this fight between Vasyl Lomachenko and Nicholas Walters is the best die-hard fight fans matchup of the year. I think it's even better than the Vargas-Salido fight, which is still my fight of the year, but this is just for higher stakes. Look, Vasyl Lomachenko's on pound-for-pound list already. And what's crazy is the guy's pro record is 6-1 with 4 knockouts. But because of that vast amateur experience, because of the challenges he's taken so early in his professional career, he's already on people's pound-for-pound list, and he deserves to be. And Nicholas Walters is one of the more dynamic, exciting fighters in the lower weight classes. These guys have been circling around each other for a while when they were at featherweight. Now they've moved up to super featherweight. And for Lomachenko, he's making the first defense of his WBO super featherweight title that he won off Roman Martinez back on June 11. For Nicholas Walters, this will be his first fight of the year. He made his 130-pound debut last December 19th against Jason Sosa in a fight that he dominated. Clearly dominated that fight, but was given, it ended in a draw, which was just bullshit. Jason Sosa has since gone on to do some good things. So, he did some learning on the job and was competitive in that fight. But Walters clearly won. Walters is 26-0, 1 draw, 21 knockouts. He's clearly the bigger guy. I think he's the harder hitter. But in terms of momentum, and this is his first fight of the year. And earlier in the year, this fight was almost signed. I remember tweeting about it and writing about it because it was that close to being signed. But Walters and his side were delaying due to money. They wanted more money. They felt that they were being ripped off in the contract. Lomachenko went as far as to say, look, I'll put a portion of my purse up. If you win, I'll give it to you. And he was willing to write that in the contract. He tweeted it out. I can't remember the exact number, but maybe it was $250,000 or something like that. I know it was 6 figures. And Walters still wanted none of it. So for the rest of this year, Walters has sat on his ass. Lomachenko has since gone on to win a second title in a second weight class. And now Walters is coming into this with almost no momentum, and he's getting pretty much the same money he was going to get before anyway, without the guarantee if he wins. So there you go, guys. There's a lesson in boxing business for you. What to do, what not to do. But as far as this matchup goes, I actually hosted an episode of 10 Count on Undisputed Champion Network that was posted a couple days ago. And I hosted that episode along with my guests were Doug Fisher of Ring TV and Mike Baca of UCN. And we were just talking about this matchup and how that, you know, the inactivity of Walters affects it in a negative way. But we actually think the weight, 130 pounds, heightens the fight. We think that Walters will feel better at 130 because he's a big guy for that weight. And I don't know how the hell he was making 126. So he should be nice and comfortable at 130 now. And for Lomachenko, he looks like he might be better at 130 than he was at 126. So in that respect, this fight happening now, where both guys are at the trajectory in their careers, at the weight it's at, I think it's going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be a better fight than it would have been 2 years ago when it was first being discussed. And of course, it's following up the replay of Kovalev-Ward, which I think is going to do a big, big rating for HBO. I think because people are talking about it, they're buzzing about the decision. I think it's going to be one of the highest rated replays they've had in a while. Here's one thing a lot of you guys don't know. For promoter Bob Arum, this is obviously a top-ranked fight, this Lomachenko-Walters thing. This is his 2,000th career event. 2,000 fight cards this guy has put on. Think about that, man. 2,000. That is just beyond amazing. And say what you will about Bob Arum for all the nastiness and everything else, and there's plenty of it. There's plenty of criticism we can give Bob Arum, but he is truly one of those guys who has just put on a lifetime of boxing. He goes back to the Ali era, and you know, the Ali Frazier 3, I think he put on. That might have been his first fight he put on, but it was around there, somewhere around there. But man, it's just a wealth. When you talk about 2,000 events, think about it, man. There's 365 days in a year. There's only 52 weeks in a year. So just do the math on 2,000. That's just really, really huge. It's an amazing accomplishment. And you think of all the fights of the year, all the rounds of the year, the knockouts of the year that are part of that 2,000. That's special, man. That's really, really special. But let me give my prediction. I think that Lomachenko will win a decision here. I think it's going to be a fun, dynamic fight. I think that there is a chance Walters could land something really, really big. And I think that Walters is clearly the biggest puncher Lomachenko has fought. So we're going to really, really see that chin get checked. So far, Lomachenko has shown a great chin, but he's going to get popped a few times in this fight. I think he's going to take Walters' best shots and show that he has a world-class chin to go along with his world-class athleticism and everything else. And if Lomachenko soundly defeats Nicholas Walters, he's got to be in your top 5 on your pound-for-pound list. That's just big when you look at what the guy will have done in 7 professional fights. And some of you point to that loss against Orlando Salido. Look, I've said it a million times. That should be a no contest. That fight was not fought on the up and up. Should be a no contest. Either way, it was his second pro fight. His second pro fight. What do you want? He was basically fighting a welterweight that night, a welterweight who failed a drug test. It should be a no contest, but the fact that he even came on strong late in that fight and made it competitive, the fact that it was even close and competitive is pretty damn amazing when you consider that was his second pro fight. So that loss, who gives a shit? I think Lomachenko is going to win here, and he's going to go in the top 5 of my pound-for-pound list. Let me know what you guys know. Like, comment, share, subscribe. We're going to talk more about some of the upcoming action next week. I'll see you guys at the fights.